The massive alien ship drifted silently through space, its metal hull stretching for miles in every direction. Inside the command center, dozens of strange creatures worked at glowing control panels. Their skin was dark blue, and they had 4 arms each. These were the Hegemony, and they had just finished something incredible. Supreme Commander Vex stood in the center of the room, his tall frame casting shadows across the floor. His 4 eyes glowed with satisfaction as he looked at the giant screen in front of him. The screen showed a map of the entire galaxy, and every single dot on it was colored red. Red meant they owned it, Commander said his assistant, a smaller alien with silver skin named Kyle. We have received the final report. The last planet in the Outer Rim has surrendered. Every world in the galaxy now belongs to us. Vex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. 3,000 years. That was how long it had taken them to conquer every single world in the galaxy. 12 different alien species had joined together to form the Hegemony, and now they ruled everything. The numbers? Vex commanded. Another alien, this one with green scales, stepped forward. Her name was Nyx, and she was in charge of making maps. Commander, we control 47 billion star systems. Every planet with intelligent life has either joined us or been destroyed. The galaxy is completely ours. The room filled with cheering. Aliens of all shapes and sizes celebrated their victory. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple heads. But they all shared one thing. They were winners. Vex raised one of his forearms for silence. Today marks the greatest achievement in galactic history. Never before has one group controlled so much space. We are the masters of everything. He walked to the great window that looked out into space. Stars twinkled like tiny diamonds against the black. All of those stars belonged to him now. What about the celebration? Asked Kyle. Prepare the victory feast, Vex replied. Every species will send representatives to honor our success. We have earned this moment. As the aliens began preparing for their party, Nyx worked quietly at her station. She was updating the official galactic map, making sure every detail was correct. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, adding the final conquered worlds to their territory. But deep in the computer system, buried under millions of files, something remained unchanged. It was an old entry, so old that dust had gathered. On the digital file, the entry read, Sector 7 Alpha, Dangerous Zone. Primitive species with weapons. Survey team missing. Do not enter. The file was 50,000 years old. The survey team that had written it was long dead. Even their species had been forgotten. But the computer had kept the file, hidden away, where no one would ever look. Nyx finished her work and smiled. Perfect, she said to herself. 100% complete coverage. She had no idea that she was wrong. Meanwhile, in a different part of the ship, military leader Rex was meeting with his top officers. They were planning how to keep control of their new empire. The key is fear, Rex explained. Every species must remember what happens when they rebel against us. We destroyed the Kelthari homeworld as an example. We wiped out the entire Vorthok race when they refused to surrender. The galaxy knows we are serious. His officers nodded. They had seen what the Hegemony could do. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their armies could crush any resistance. For 3,000 years, no one had been able to stop them. What about patrol routes? Asked one officer. We will divide the galaxy into sections, Rex replied. Each fleet will watch over their assigned area. If anyone tries to rebel, we will destroy them quickly. Back in the command center, Vex was already thinking about the future. What shall we conquer next? He wondered aloud. Kaya looked confused. Commander, there is nothing left to conquer. We own everything. Surely there must be other galaxies, Vex said. The nearest galaxy is millions of light years away, Nyx explained. It would take us thousands of years to reach it, even with our fastest ships. Vex nodded slowly. For the first time in his life, he had run out of things to conquer. It was a strange feeling. The celebration began that night. Representatives from every species in the galaxy came to bow before the Hegemony leaders. They brought gifts and spoke words of praise. Some were truly grateful to be part of the Empire. Others were simply afraid. As the party continued, no one noticed the small blinking light on Nix's computer. It was just a routine system check, scanning through old files. The light blinked once, twice, then stopped. The computer had found the ancient file about Sector 7 Alpha, but no one was watching. The file remained buried and forgotten. The hegemony celebrated their total victory, completely unaware that they had missed something. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, in a sector they had forgotten to check, something was waiting. Something that would change everything. But that night, they were simply the rulers of the galaxy, and they believed nothing could stop them. Captain Hyansik stood on the bridge of his ship, the Inchin, drinking his morning coffee. It was supposed to be a quiet day. The Earth Defense Force had been patrolling the edge of human space for years without seeing anything unusual. Empty space and distant stars. Then the alarm started screaming. "Captain," shouted his communications officer, a young woman named Sujin. "We have multiple contacts appearing on the edge of the system. They're big, sir. Really big." Hyansik dropped his coffee cup and rushed to the main screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. 27 massive ships had appeared out of nowhere. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and glowing with strange lights. "Have we ever seen ships like these before?" he asked. "No, sir," replied his science officer. "The design is completely unknown. These are definitely not human ships." The bridge fell silent. For over 200 years, humans had been exploring space. They had found empty planets, strange rocks, and beautiful nebulas. But they had never found other intelligent life. Till now, "Open a channel," Hyansik ordered. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Hyansik of the United Earth Defense Force. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came immediately, and it was in perfect Korean. The voice was cold and mechanical. "Primitive species. Of Sector 7 Alpha, you will surrender immediately and submit to hegemony authority. Resistance is meaningless. You have 1 hour to comply." Hyansik stared at the screen. "They know our language. They know where we are, and they're giving us orders." On the largest alien ship, Commander Thex looked at his tactical display with boredom. This was always the easiest part of his job. A new species would see their ships, hear their demands, and surrender within minutes. It had happened the same way for thousands of years. "Sir," said his assistant, "should we prepare the occupation forces?" "Not yet," Dex replied. "Give them time to panic first. Fear makes the surrender more complete." But something strange was happening on the human ships. Instead of preparing to surrender, they were moving into attack formation. Back on the Inchin, Hyansik was talking quickly into his radio. "Admiral Park, we need immediate backup. Unknown alien force demanding surrender." The reply came from Admiral Sujin Park, commanding the main defense fleet from her flagship Seoul. "How many ships, Captain?" 27, ma'am. Each one could probably destroy our entire fleet." There was a pause. Then Admiral Park's voice came back, calm and determined. "Captain, relay this message to our alien visitors. Earth does not surrender. Earth does not kneel. If they want our worlds, they can try to take them from our dead hands." Hyansik smiled, despite the fear in his chest. "Yes, ma'am." He opened the channel again. "Alien vessels. This is our response. No." On the hegemony command. Shipthek stared at his communication panel in confusion. He said, "No, yes, sir. They refused our demand to surrender. But ... that's impossible. Every species surrenders. It's what they do." Thex had conquered 43 different species. In his career, some had tried to fight for a few hours before giving up. Others had surrendered immediately. But none had ever said no to the hegemony and meant it. "Sir, their ships are moving toward us," reported his tactical officer. Dex looked at his screen. The tiny human ships were actually flying straight at his massive fleet. It was like watching insects attack a giant. "This is amusing," he said. "Let them come." It will destroy them quickly and move on to the next planet. Admiral Park's fleet arrived just as the first shots were fired. 50 human ships against 27 alien monsters. The aliens had better weapons, stronger shields, and more experience, but they had never fought humans before. "All ships," Admiral Park announced. "Execute Yorktown Protocol. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our home." The Yorktown Protocol was something only humans would think of. When your weapons couldn't hurt the enemy and your shields couldn't stop their attacks. You turned your own ship into a weapon. Captain Minho of the destroyer Busan was the first to do it. His ship was already damaged and losing power. Instead of retreating, he aimed his ship directly at the nearest alien vessel and pushed his reactor to maximum overload. "For Earth," shouted as his ship exploded. The explosion was so powerful it cracked the hull of the alien ship. For the first time in 3,000 years, a hegemony vessel had been seriously damaged by a primitive species. Commander X watched in horror as 3 more human ships followed the same tactic. They were deliberately destroying themselves to hurt his fleet. "What kind of species uses suicide attacks as standard tactics?" he whispered. "Sir, we're losing ships," his tactical officer reported. "These humans fight like they have nothing to lose." "Retreat," Vex ordered. "Full retreat. Hey, we need to report this to High Command." As the alien ships disappeared, Admiral Park looked at the empty space where brave human ships had been just minutes before. "Send a message to Earth Command," she said quietly. "First contact has been made, and we're at war." Supreme Commander Vex paced back and forth in the great crystal chamber on the hegemony capital world. His forearms moved angrily as he spoke to the emergency council. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat before him, but today they all looked nervous. "Explain to me," Vex said, his voice echoing off the walls, "how we missed an entire species that shoots itself at our ships, like living missiles." The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. For 3,000 years they had conquered every species they met. Some fought back for a few days, others surrendered immediately. But none had ever made hegemony ships retreat. Grand Archivist Zool stepped forward. He was old, even by hegemony standards, and his green skin was wrinkled with age. "Supreme Commander, I have been searching through our oldest records. What I found is ... disturbing." "Show me," Vex demanded. Zul activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Ancient text appeared in the air, glowing softly. Its report is 50,000 years old. It was filed by Survey Team Epsilon 7. The text was hard to read because it was so old. But Zool read it aloud. "Sector 7 Alpha contains aggressive primitive species. They possess nuclear weapons and show extreme territorial behavior. Recommend quarantine of entire sector. Species too dangerous for standard conquest protocols." The room fell silent. Military strategist Rex leaned forward in his chair. "What happened to the survey team?" "They never returned," Zol replied quietly. "The file shows they went to investigate the 3rd planet in the system. No further contact was made." Vex stopped pacing. "So you're telling me that 50,000 years ago, we found these humans, decided they were too dangerous to bother with, and then forgot about them completely?" "It appears so, Supreme Commander. And in 50,000 years, no one thought to check on them again." Zool shifted nervously. The bureaucratic system classified the sector as permanent quarantine zone. It was removed from standard patrol routes and exploration schedules. Over time, it was simply forgotten. Rex stood up from his chair. He was the hegemony's best military mind, and he looked worried. "Supreme Commander, I've analyzed the battle reports from Commander Dex. These humans are not the same species. Our ancestors encountered..." "What do you mean?" 50,000 years ago, they had primitive nuclear weapons and were confined to one planet. Now, they have faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and colonies spread across dozens of star systems. They've continued to evolve while we ignored them. Intelligence Officer Crix activated another display. "Our scouts report that humans have unified their entire species under one government. They call it the United Earth Alliance. Every human world answers to the same military command structure." Vex felt a chill run down his spine. "Unified completely?" "Supreme Commander." In our entire galactic conquest, we have never encountered a species that achieved total unification. Most species are divided into competing factions that we can turn against each other. But not these humans, Rex added.
When we attacked one of their ships, every human in the sector responded as if we had attacked their own family.
There are references here to something called pack behavior. The original survey team noted that humans form extremely strong bonds with their group members. They will die to protect each other. We saw that, Rex said grimly. They turned their own ships into weapons rather than let us capture them. No rational species does that. Science advisor Nix had been quiet until now. She was responsible for studying conquered species and finding their weaknesses. Supreme Commander, I've been analyzing human broadcasts from their colony worlds. They don't just fight for survival. They fight for something they call freedom. Freedom. The concept is difficult to translate, but it seems to mean the right to make their own choices without outside control. They appear willing to die for this concept. Vex sat heavily in his throne. So we have a unified species that values freedom. Overlife has had 50,000 years to develop their technology, and has already proven they can damage our ships. There's more, Rex continued. Our intelligence shows they've been preparing for this kind of war for decades. They have something called contingency plans for fighting a superior enemy force. They were expecting us. Not specifically us, but they were expecting someone. Their military training focuses heavily on asymmetric warfare, fighting enemies who are stronger and better equipped. Crix pulled up tactical analysis. They study historical battles from their own planet. Conflicts where smaller forces defeated larger ones through superior strategy and willingness to sacrifice. They've made warfare into an art form, Rex observed. While other species see battle as something to be avoided, humans see it as a test of their character. Vex looked around the room at his advisors. For the first time in his long life, he felt uncertain. What do you recommend? We have 3 options, Rex replied. We can try to negotiate with them, we can commit a massive force to destroy them completely, or we can leave them alone. Negotiate, Vex laughed bitterly. The hegemony does not negotiate with primitives. We must destroy them quickly, Rex said. Because if we don't, they will continue to grow stronger. And Supreme Commander, there's one more thing you should. know. What? They're already sending ships beyond their sector. They're exploring, if they find other species who might join them. Rex didn't finish the sentence. The implication hung in the air like a dark cloud. For the first time in 3,000 years, the hegemony faced a real threat. Colonel Minho stood in what used to be a hegemony command center on the planet. Kepler 44 to be. 2 years had passed. Since the first battle at Earth, and everything had changed. The alien control panels around him now displayed human text, and Earth flags hung from the walls where hegemony banners once flew. Colonel, said Lieutenant Yujin, running up with a data pad in her hands. The engineering teams have finished studying the plasma cannons we captured. They say we can build our own versions within 3 weeks. Minho smiled. This was how humans fought wars. They didn't just defend themselves, they learned. Hegemony weapon they captured became a human weapon. Every alien ship they destroyed taught them something new. Good work, Lieutenant. What about the shield technology? Still working on that one, sir. But Dr. Kim thinks she's close to a breakthrough. Across the galaxy, the impossible was happening. The hegemony had expected to crush the humans quickly, like they had crushed every other species. Instead, they found themselves fighting the first real war they had faced in 3,000 years, on the former hegemony stronghold at Proxima Station. Commander Yunhai was meeting with alien representatives. The meeting room was filled with creatures she had never seen before, some with tentacles, others with multiple heads, all of them former slaves of the hegemony. Your species has shown us something we had forgotten, said Velthari Commander. Sylvex. His people looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin. You have shown us that the hegemony can be defeated. We're not trying to defeat them alone, Yunhai replied. We want to defeat them together. This was the human secret. Weapon. They didn't just fight, they made friends. Every species the hegemony had conquered over the centuries had been waiting for someone to show them that rebellion was possible. Ambassador. Jae-sung had spent the last year traveling to different worlds in a small, fast ship. His mission was simple: find conquered species and give them hope. On the water world of Aquatica, he spoke to the fish-like Merlani people. The hegemony told you that resistance was hopeless, he said through a translation device. They were wrong. He showed them videos of human ships destroying hegemony vessels. He showed them humans and aliens working together on captured stations. Most importantly, he showed them that the hegemony could bleed. "But they have so many ships," said the Merlani leader, her gills fluttering nervously. "How can we possibly win?" "It's the same way we won every war on Earth," Jasun replied. "Not by being stronger, but by being smarter. Not by fighting alone, but by fighting together." Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Dong Hwan was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. His command center was filled with screens showing battles across 100 different star systems. Admiral reported his tactical officer, "The rebellion on Vega 7 has succeeded. The hegemony garrison has surrendered." "Excellent." The Centauri sector? The Zephyrian rebels have captured 3 hegemony supply bases. They're requesting more human advisors. Dong Hwan nodded. This was how the war was really being won. Not through massive battles, but through 1,000 small victories. Every world that rebelled meant fewer resources for the hegemony. Every captured base meant more weapons for the resistance. The humans had learned something important about the hegemony. For all their power, they were not prepared for this kind of war. They had spent 3,000 years conquering scattered, divided species. They had never faced a coordinated rebellion across multiple systems. On the hegemony capital world, Supreme Commander Vex was receiving increasingly desperate reports from his field commanders. "Sir," said his intelligence officer, "we've lost contact with 15 garrison worlds in the past month. The rebellions are spreading faster than we can contain them. How is this possible?" Vex demanded. "We have the strongest military in galactic history. The humans are teaching other species their tactics," the officer explained. "They're sharing technology, providing training, and coordinating attacks. Every species they contact becomes part of their alliance," military strategist Rex studied the tactical displays with growing concern. "Supreme Commander, we're fighting a completely new kind of war. Our forces are designed to conquer planets, not to fight guerrilla campaigns across hundreds of worlds simultaneously." "Then we'll destroy them all," Vex snarled. "Every rebel world, every human colony, everything." "Sir, that would require destroying over 60% of our former territory. The economic damage alone would cripple the Empire." But the real problem was something none of the hegemony leaders wanted to admit. The humans weren't just winning battles, they were winning hearts and minds. Species that had been conquered for centuries were remembering what it felt like to be free. On the mining world of Asteroid Prime, human engineer Sa Young worked alongside crystalline workers to modify their mining equipment into weapons. The crystallines had been slaves for 2,000 years, but now they were soldiers. "Your people are very strange," said the crystalline foreman, his rocky skin glinting in the artificial light. "Most species fight to survive. You fight to help others survive." So Young smiled as she welded another modification onto a mining drill. "That's what makes us human." Across the galaxy, the impossible war continued. The hegemony, masters of everything, found themselves slowly losing control. Not to superior technology or overwhelming force, but to something they had never encountered before, the human idea that freedom is worth any sacrifice, and that idea was spreading faster than they could stop it. Admiral Hai-1 stood on the bridge of the massive ship that had once been called Eternal Dominion. Now it was renamed Liberation. And instead of the hegemony's red banners, it flew the flags of 100 different species. Through the great windows, she could see the last hegemony fortress finally lowering its weapons in surrender. 5 years. That was how long it had taken to bring down an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from all remaining hegemony positions. The war is over." Hai-1 nodded, but she felt no joy in victory. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. Human and alien alike had sacrificed everything for this day, in the ship's detention center. Former Supreme Commander Vex sat in an energy cage, his forearms chained together. His empire was gone, his fleets destroyed or captured, his power broken. But he was alive, which was more mercy than he had ever shown to others. Representative Ji-hoon walked into the detention area. He was Earth's chief diplomat, and he had a job to do. Behind him walked representatives from dozens of species, former slaves who now stood as equals. Vex of the former hegemony, Ji-hoon said formally, you are charged with crimes against every free species in the galaxy.
Ow.
Do you plead? Vex looked up at him with hatred in his 4 eyes. I do not recognize the authority of primitive species. To judge me, then you will have plenty of time to think about it, Ji-hoon replied calmly. Your trial will be fair, which is more than you gave to the billions you destroyed. On Earth, President So-young was preparing for the most important speech in human history. The communication network would carry her words to every world in the galaxy. Humans, aliens, former enemies, and new friends would all hear what she had to say. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice steady and strong. Today marks the end of the longest tyranny in galactic history. But more importantly, it marks the beginning of something new. On distant worlds, beings of every shape and size gathered around communication devices to listen. We did not fight this war to replace one empire with another. We fought to ensure that no empire would ever again control the lives of free beings. Today we announced the formation of the Galactic Liberation Coalition. Captain Wu Jin was patrolling the former hegemony core worlds in his ship Busan. What he saw amazed him. Planets that had been military bases were being converted into schools and hospitals. Weapon factories were being turned into farms and research centers. Captain, said his science officer, we're receiving a transmission from the surface of Hegemony Prime. They're requesting aid in setting up their first democratic government. Wu Jin smiled. Send them everything they need, and offer to send human advisors if they want them. This was the real victory. It's not just defeating the hegemony, but helping former enemies become friends. Back on the Liberation, Admiral Haiwan was meeting with the leaders of the new coalition. The room was filled with beings she could never have imagined 5 years ago. Crystalline creatures that looked like walking gemstones. Aquatic beings in mobility suits filled with water. Energy beings that appeared as glowing clouds of light. Question before us, said Velthari Admiral Silvex, is how to prevent this from happening again. How do we ensure that no single group ever gains this much power? We share it, replied Human Admiral Donghuan. No one species gets to make decisions for everyone else. Every world gets a voice. Every species gets representation. It was a radical idea. For millions of years, galactic politics had been about the strong ruling the weak. Now the humans were suggesting something different, that everyone should have equal say in their own future. It will be difficult, warned Zephyrian Counselor Nixera. Some species have been enemies for thousands of years, then we help them. Become friends, said Human Ambassador Jae-sung. It's worked for us. The meeting continued for hours as they planned the new galactic government. There would be a council with representatives from every species. There would be laws protecting the rights of individual worlds. Most importantly, there would be no single ruler with absolute power. Years later, former Supreme Commander Vex was allowed to watch a historical broadcast from his prison cell. The Galactic Liberation Coalition had grown to include over 10,000 species. Trade flowed freely between worlds. Former enemies worked together on scientific projects. Wars between species had become almost extinct. I don't understand, he said to his guard, a kind human woman named Minji. How do you control so many different species without force? Minji looked at him with something that might have been pity. We don't control them. We work with them. There's a difference. But how do you maintain order without fear? We use something better than fear, she replied. We use hope. The galaxy that emerged from the war was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve, still differences to overcome, but it was free. Every being in the galaxy could choose their own path, make their own decisions, and live their own life The forgotten sector had not conquered the galaxy. Instead, they had taught the galaxy to conquer itself, to overcome fear, hatred, and oppression through unity, hope. The simple idea that all beings deserve to be free, and the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter because of it.